Hello, welcome back to e-commerceville. I'm here with Robert, a star in the up and coming e-commerce market. Robert is someone who started his brand a little bit over a year ago, and he went from literally zero to now starting to do hundreds of units per day, especially on Amazon. His focus right now is Amazon. He's in US, UK, Europe, South of Africa, like he's everywhere. And what I wanted to speak with him about is how did he manage to do it so quickly, especially that he doesn't have a background in ecom, so it's not like he did it for 10 years before. So Robert, thank you for coming in. I'll let you spill all the knowledge you have.
Yanni, thank you for having me. Well, I think most importantly, how I learned was really going all in. A lot of people want to build a business as a side hustle, especially when you think about an online or an Amazon business. If you go all in for anything, whether it's business, personal, exercise, you really are able to expedite the process of learning. I made every mistake under the sun, but that helps you to improve quicker, to iterate, to learn from your errors, and then to build quicker. So I launched my first product in July. And that was when I had done a few months of market research, of understanding what was available, and most importantly, trying to solve a problem I had myself. This was a scar product that I used to use the solution, the competitor solution, and there were ways in which I thought this could be done better, could be made better. I looked at a lot of the customer complaints, and everyone had the same feeling. So I thought, let me go and do this. Let me test the cycle if how quick I can get this to market. Knowing what I know now, I was very slow to market, but when I started, that's what I thought was quick.
Yeah.
I wish I could have entered a lot quicker, but I launched my first product in July in the UK. And even then, there were many failures. My product actually physically landed in my own backyard, so I could see it, so I could test it. I'd manufactured 5,000 units of this product to then send to Amazon, only to receive the products themselves. They were packages with a sort of a box style content,
Oh,
and none of them were being correctly sealed,
oh,
which means they need a sticker to attach the box to the sort of inner drawer.
yeah.
Um, and I had to do all of that for 5,000
Wow.
units because that's the learning you have. So I then, did 5,000 stickers on a box, and I physically sent them myself to the Amazon warehouse at the same time doing a sort of a mini tour of the warehouse to learn how that worked. I can initially thought I can launch my product and I will start selling with a little bit of an PPC spend. Well, that was another major failing. While sales were great for all of 48 hours when friends and family were supporting me, the drastic dip came, and I realized, well, you need to sell quicker and you need to invest in Amazon. So as one does, I got an onboarded initial agency that helped with Amazon PPC to scale my product initially. I actually remember they were charging £350 a month. I don't know why I thought this was a great idea, because as a core launch strategy, that is far too cheap. They are never going to be value. I actually just this was because I was a rookie in this space. I paid and basically got very little in a month, and by the middle of August, I had not improved sales and paid 350 to an agency that I ended up talking to more about the contract than the PPC.
Of course, because they tried to tie you
So
in.
yeah, there was no growth. We started complaining. I was sort of very upset. I wanted to bring this in house. And if I backtrack a little bit, my initial assumption on launching this product was this is going to be an e-commerce product. I want to sell through TikTok Shop primarily and Amazon as a secondary channel.
Yeah.
My target markets were US first, UK second. I tried to launch TikTok Shop in the US very quickly to learn that I needed to physically be there to open my TikTok Shop or partner with someone as a PBR, primary beneficial resident.
Exactly.
Anyway, so I thought I can do this in the UK. I'm based in the UK. Let me start up my TikTok Shop in the UK. The TikTok Shop in the UK was a ginormous failure on my behalf. I've to date sold about 3 products through the platform, but I tried. I created content. I made videos. I maybe launched about 115 videos.
Wow.
Not great. I would like to go back and have a look at how poor the content was, but I was trying to balance a bit of Amazon, but a bit of TikTok, creating content myself. I'm not a content creator. do I want to create content? Not really.
Yeah.
And so I sort of, by the end of August, we had 2 months of selling. Amazon's doing all right. Their sales are coming through. TikTok Shop has taken all my time.
And now you're managing it yourself.
I'm fully managing myself again. And TikTok Shop's taking all my time. I'm not loving the content creation journey. This is never really where I want it to be. So I'm kind of in two minds here. Where do I split my time? So I decided to go all in on Amazon and
Yeah.
sort of park TikTok Shop.
I have a good amount of questions here. So
Yes.
first thing that is very important to point out is that you used this product before. You saw gaps. It's something you actually used. There was an issue that you were trying to solve, and you created that product. You weren't trying to find the trendiest thing. You weren't trying to start a creating gummies brand. It was something you actually thought, okay, understand the brand, understand the pain. I think I can do something better. I think that's super important because you can be the master of PPC and advertising, but if the product is not good, it's not priced correctly, and it doesn't solve an issue, you're not going to do well because you can create all the traffic in the world, but nobody's going to buy that product. You said you had more than one agency at one point. What was the issue with these agencies? I'm curious because what I find, right, because a lot of our brands we work with come from other agencies, is it's either, as I mentioned before, it's either they don't spend enough time on the product. Like, for example, your product is very specific. The strategy for your product will be quite different from something on as a home utensil, right? So you have different LTV, you have different CAC, everything is different from your product compared to other one. So I think analyzing, they don't know the market, they don't know the competitors, so they're just doing generic ad strategies as they will do with every product. And sometimes you get lucky and it works, but most of the times it doesn't work. And especially when you're beginning, it's very difficult because you're not established in the market, you don't really have any reviews. So the amount of effort to actually do well, it's much bigger than when you start getting established.
Yeah, spot on. So I have two comments on that. Firstly, the difficult part with selling a product online is really finding the right product. I think if you can go down the journey of solving your own pain point or another existing customer pain point, you're really one step in the right direction. I knew what my competitors' sales volumes were, I knew what the demand was, and I thought there is enough demand if I create a product which myself plus a lot of customers who complained about it would feel the same. There is a sellable gap here. I'm not trying to make assumptions or I'm not trying to hypothesize over whether or not I can sell this. It's already selling, plus we are solving some pain points that customers have. Secondly, when I brought on the first agency, I was such a novice in all aspects that I think they were able to pick up that he doesn't really know what he's doing. So we're going to do the bare minimum so as to get approval or get his signature. I didn't mention I had a Shopify website. So this first agency that came on board was to run Google and Meta ads as well as PPC ads. I knew very little about all.
Everything.
Yeah, basically everything. I knew very little about all three. Really poor from my behalf not to have known more because I would have been able to push them in the right direction or understand what they were doing. But it was just a case of poor work done, bad expectations, and poor knowledge from my behalf. So within a month, we got rid of them. I actually then brought on quite an expensive agency to try help with TikTok Shop specifically and Amazon. So this was middle of August, let's say. And I thought, okay, I've paid for cheap and I got cheap. I'm going to try pay for what I think is a bit more expensive and get quality. After the first month, and I paid about £3,000 for this agency. After the first month, they had delivered very little, and I was incredibly disappointed. I'm still disappointed to this day because they still speak highly about themselves and talk of this big game, but the actual content that they helped me create on TikTok and the actual output that they gave was really poor. So middle of September, after a month with this agency.
And bear in mind, 3,000 when you're starting out, it's a lot of money. Like that's so much inventory you can buy. Like that can help you. Like that can go towards ads. That can go towards everything.
Absolutely. This was my greatest mistake to date, is that I outsourced too quickly without learning myself. And this was the number one case where I should never have paid them that. Especially starting up when you are cash strapped and, this is an important stage of not just growing the business, but learning more. You've really got to learn before outsourcing. You can't teach someone to swim by reading a book. You've got to jump in the water. And so I thought, I've got the product. Here's an agency. Can you sell it? No, no, no. That's not how it works. Learn how to sell it, and then get an agency to help scale the sales. Look, I'm still making these exact mistakes now, but after getting rid of that agency and bringing everything slightly more in-house, we then started to look a lot better in October. The plan for me was get it right on Amazon in the UK, move to the US. I initially, when I launched, was the other way around, but because I was in the UK at the time, I thought, let's get it right here, move to the US. US represented an 8 to 10x size market. As always, a great month in October was followed by a delisting in November. And I was horrified. One email comes within a matter of seconds, your whole world flips, and you're like, wow. And that was actually not my problem. They had just changed the medical regulation for our category. As such, all competitors were actually delisted. So it wasn't major. It just stopped sales for 2.5 weeks. Fortunately, I got the registration that was needed. And by middle of December, I was back up and running and looking good.
And now at this point, you're self-managing. Now you're doing everything yourself. Cases, you're fighting Amazon, everything you're doing
Everything
yourself.
I'm doing myself. Still, actually not very sure what I was doing with PPC. I look back to my December self thinking, you knew nothing. You were trying to run this yourself, but you knew nothing. And I still think there is endless room for learning, but I really didn't know enough when I tried to bring it in-house. So there's a very fine line between wanting to bring it in-house, but not having the knowledge. So keeping some sort of outsourced element to help, because your product is selling. You need to have that balance. And so I tried to learn, but December I was back in South Africa. It ended up being quite a disturbed month of work, and performance wasn't great. So for the fourth time, I looked again to a new agency to help with me, not not
Yeah.
external
Uh,
to me. So I
yeah.
onboarded a new agency that was able to help with the launch of my product in the US, as well as growth in the UK
Okay.
from the end of January. January was an okay month.
Yeah.
Sales had picked up nicely. We were, reaching probably actually about 80 to 100 sales a day in the UK.
Wow.
So we were looking quite
Yeah.
good. US, obviously, new market, much more competitive category. This was going to be a 4 to 6
Very
month play
expensive.
on spending aggressively, ranking better, and trying to grow. But the UK, we were top 5 ranked product in the scar category, quite a number of times number 1. We had enough reviews and great stars. And I initially onboarded this agency that I did a lot with them, so I was able to learn with them. And my number one piece of advice to anyone who was starting up is, instead of outsourcing some of these key processes, rather get an agency that does it with you for learning perspective, or at least you learn along the way, and they can tell you what they've done or how you've done it. And so I was able to learn a lot more from what they were doing. By the end of February, I was super excited. We were selling 150 units a day. I thought this was great. Profits were great. Units were flying out. This is UK. US is certainly, I know, it's going to take some time. But of course, you can't always surf the wave forever. And what looks like and can't be proven, a slight competitor attack came in the end of February. We had a number of 1-star ratings. And as such, our product was again removed on Amazon, because Amazon sent us a message or email to say your product is not as advertised, because a number of these customer complaints were saying this product is not the same as advertised. It was 100% the same as advertised. They just, enough customers had complained that the algorithm picked it up. And so for a good 3.5 weeks, I struggled to fight this agency, to fight the Amazon system to try get relisted. And I was going from dancing in the rain, 150 sales a day in the UK, to 0 for 3 weeks, fighting every day on multiple phone calls. The agency themselves had an ability to help, but they were also unable to help. And we went back and forth with supplier invoices and proof of everything we needed. We finally got there, but ratings were hurt and sales volumes were hurt. So by the end of March, we were listed again, ranking way lower, ratings way lower. And so we sort of spent most of April trying to build sales and build our listing again. And I guess we're at a stage today where we are back to number 5 or 10 in the category. we're back to selling 100 units a day in the UK, and
Yeah.
we're back to a good place. But that's how up and down the journey can be in the UK. And as of last week, Friday, I actually got rid of this last agency again, fourth time, because I think there are enough tools now to help me cut my time on management of PPC much lower, so I can manage it myself using AI tools
Yeah.
to decrease my time investment, but making sure the quality remains. And I have enough knowledge now to feel confident and confident enough to continue to manage the account.
Very, very interesting point there. I think because you have one product, you don't have many products. I think you can definitely manage it yourself. I agree with that. And I do believe that you don't need to be a PPC expert or Amazon expert, but you want to be able to understand what good means, what bad means, what a good tacos is, what a good ACOS, like you want to understand them, right? Because if you hire someone, and that can be an agency, that can be an internal person, whoever you choose, you want to understand how do they work? Like, am I going in the right direction? Am I going the wrong direction? Is my conversion up? Why is my conversion up? When was the last time we changed the main image? Do we need to change the main image? All of these things that you can't know unless you're in the game. Like you just can't. And because especially for brand owners, it's extra difficult because brand owners have only one product or two products and they don't have enough data, right? For us, now that we work with 20 plus brands, we have so much data all the time. We see things all the time, right? And that's a good thing. If an agency is good and if they have a lot of brands under management, the amount of data they have compared to the average brand, it's much larger. If you're managing a couple of million a month in ad spend through different brands, you should see a lot more things, especially now with AI. You can really read that data much easier. That's the biggest part that I see. But you need to understand, if you don't understand the things, it's going to be very difficult. The US market is very interesting. I actually love your approach of you start in the UK because you're in the UK, you go bigger there first, and then you go to US. I think it's better because the US market is the biggest, but also the US market, it's more expensive to advertise most of the times. It's more difficult to break in because you have so many competitors. Now, you break into the US market, you become top five in the US market, it's completely different numbers, right? So there's the pros and cons. But I would say if you're in the UK first, and then you go to US and you start dominating there. What was the other most difficult things you found? So would you say PPC was the biggest issue, or what was the biggest issue for you that you were struggling to understand, or there was a bottleneck on?
I think PPC is certainly my greatest challenge, but I would like to take a step back and maybe having more clarity and then more conviction on the sales approach would have been better. I mentioned earlier that I started with the slide shotgun approach. Let's go TikTok, let's go Amazon, let's build a Shopify, let's pump money into PPC and
Yeah.
Amazon and I mean Google and Meta. That's too much. That's too much for one person, especially with inexperience. I would say I struggled with that most. And if I were to start again, I would sharpen the pencil before, doing the drawing. I would narrow my approach or my focus and really target Amazon. Okay, I want to know how to optimize listings. I want to know how to make sure I set up my campaign structures quickly. I want to know what bids and what time of days affect things, etc., etc. Once I'm confident in the Amazon ecosystem, possibly then you look to go into the other verticals. Not saying that you can't do it, or not saying that you shouldn't maybe look to outsource some of that, but I think gaining a better learning of how all of the ecosystems work, especially as you said that we are very omnichannel now and how the e-commerce works. I think that would have been a far better approach, and that was a bigger bottleneck for me because those first 3 or 4 months I was here, I was there, I was Arthur, I was Martha. I didn't really know what was going on. Whereas now my focus is very much Amazon. In saying that, I've also
Yeah.
found now that retail is a secondary channel for me that I had not expected and which I'm now starting to spend a lot more time on. Interestingly, this actually came from a number of inbound outreach contacts from independent retailers saying we want to stock this product, and I didn't expect that. So I received in maybe October, November, around this time, a couple of 3 or 4 independent pharmacies in London reached out to me to say we love your product, we're dying to stock it, are you available for retail stocking? So that opened up a whole
Wow.
sort of different thinking. Of
Yeah.
course I am, why not? And then from there, you then need to get well, I initially actually stocked all my pharmacies through removal orders on Amazon because all my products were stored in Amazon DCs across the UK. But I've
Yeah.
subsequently onboarded a 3PL that I store, I guess, retail stock at, and then Amazon stores my Amazon sales. And now we've got up to, I think we had another 3 pharmacies reach out this week, so 62 pharmacies in the UK.
Wow. Wow. And how much of the volume is Amazon and retail right now? Like, what were the sales percentage split with?
We're still primarily Amazon, so 90% Amazon sales, 10% retail. The conversations for sales and retail are much slower. We know that, and conversions take a long time. So, I've had early conversations with one of the chains, Superdrug in the UK. They have 800 or so stores. That conversation can take 6
Yeah.
months, but as soon as you're in 800 stores,
Okay.
within the click of a button, you're gonna be more than your Amazon sales per month. So trying to build up the
Yeah,
sales
exactly.
pipeline from a retail perspective is much slower, but has the ability to be, I think, much larger than my Amazon sales volume in the longer term.
That's a good point. Retail, especially when it comes to e-commerce, is such an undiscovered part. Nobody really talks about retail. And not every product is right for retail, right? I think your product is perfect because Boots, Superdrug, they can do very well. It's a small product. It's not an expensive product, it is perfect for the actual market. Now, products that are very expensive won't work for a lot of the retailers. But I think retail is great first because, as you said, if you go with someone like Boots or Superdrug, you have the amount of access you have is insane. The trust, plus you go online for them as well. So now when someone Googles it or checks it, they can find it to so many places. It's a lot social proof because when someone sees it in Boots, they're like, "Oh wow, they're in Boots. Are they online as well?" They are online as well. So it is a big opportunity. One thing I want to watch carefully for retail is cash flow because sometimes their terms are 30, 60-day payments. So they're a bit tricky with that stuff. But again, retail is great. I think retail is an undiscovered opportunity, especially for your type of product. Another product that's great for retail is energy drinks, water. Heavy products are great for that. It makes a big difference for heavy products because it's very difficult. The unit economic for a heavy product on Amazon or shipping, it's very expensive compared to something like yours works great on Amazon because it's so small. Like the FBA fees compared to bigger item are so much better. What are the plans now for the next 12 months? What is the outlook?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you that, but the reality is I'm still trying to solve day-to-day Amazon issues, and I'm still trying to unlock retail sales. But if I could say what the 12-month plan is we grow retail sales in the UK and the US. We continue to expand on Amazon in the UK and US driving sales. I think it will take another few months before we really break into the Amazon US market for our category. And then I'm now based in South Africa and I've partnered with a medical distributor here. So hopefully within the next 4 months, we launch in the retail market here, not e-commerce here because the e-commerce market isn't quite established yet in South Africa.
Not great. I
No,
mean, South Africa is one of the worst Amazons I've tried,
yeah, it's just not there yet. It's just
unfortunately.
not there yet, but the retail market is there. And so for me, it's continuing to drive retail and Amazon sales for the product. And until such a stage where I think I've exhausted my sales opportunities, I'm going to focus solely on one product and one SKU. Incredibly
Absolutely.
simple, really. I like to say that I haven't reinvented the wheel here. I've taken a competitor's product and just tried to make it better and making every mistake getting there, but getting there nonetheless.
No, I think that's a great point. I think many brands, when they see a product work, they make the mistake of creating another five ASINs, which another five ASINs means more cash flow issues. You need to speak with more manufacturers. It's not a proven product because you can do all the research, but some products just don't work sometimes. But when a product works, especially when you have so many countries, because if you max out the UK, you have the US. If you max the US, which is difficult, you have Germany, you have Europe. Like there's so many marketplaces now that it's not one place to max. And as you said, TikTok is another platform. Like one product can do extremely well. Think about Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is like one product with seven variations. So as long as there's a big enough total addressable market, which for most products nowadays there is, and if you've done the research, they should be. I would first dominate the first product, and and make as many iterations as needed, because maybe in 12 months you need to change the packaging or something changes in the market, you need to change slightly. But I agree, having one focus on one product makes a huge difference. And again, there's different situations. Now, some brands start with 10 million capital and they have investors and private equity, and of course you can play around more. But when you're starting yourself, your bootstrapping is more difficult. So I think it makes a massive difference, especially there. One advice I would give you, if I can, I would say for PPC, try to keep it as manual as possible. That's the only thing I would say, because the reason I'm saying this is we've tried most of the softwares on Amazon PPC, including MCP on Claude, including creating our own stuff. Automation, especially when we come talking about bits, it's still not there. Like, we did a big research. We had 5 brands that came to us that came from other agencies that use automations. And the difference between us managing it and the automation and managing it it's night and day, right? Especially for us, it would make a lot of sense to use tools like this because we have 22 brands to work with. But it's just, the results are so much worse. Still, now this might change. And the reason they're worse, what we analyzed is AI, however smart it is, it doesn't understand all the intricacies. Because when you do PPC manually, and you go into a campaign. Now, for example, negations are something that a tool can do easier, right? As long as it has good guidelines. But actual optimizing it, if you go into a campaign, looking at the search term, looking at when the last time the bid was changed, what happened since the last time the bid changed, the actual product you see in the product targeting, there's a lot of intricacies that you struggle to tell AI for it to do it successfully. Now, you do have one product, so you can get away with doing it manually. But I would try to do as much manual as possible, because a lot of your competitors are doing, I don't think they are, but a lot of the competitors are doing automations, right? They're using PPC software, so you can kick their ass because they'll just do the generic stuff. They'll change the bit 20 times a day. They don't have that data to play with, so you manually can crush a lot of competition. Like, everyone that I know that's doing very well in PPC right now is going 100% manual for optimization, right? Some stuff like negations and just reports, of course, automate that. Like reports, you don't need to do that manually. It doesn't make sense. But everything else that it's when actually touching it, ideally you wanna use manual, and you're probably using it already. You want to use a lot the search query performance, the SQP report. If you're not using it, use it like crazy. That's the best data you can get, because Helium 10, it's all aggregated data. It's all maybe data. It's not 100%, but search query performance, the amount of data you can get there from how you're competing, your average conversion rate, how you're dominating keywords, it's massive.
That's super helpful. Thank you. I probably before this call would have been slightly more on the automated road, but given your advice, I will make sure to remain far more manual. And especially, it makes sense. I have one product. I've tried to restructure the campaigns that the agencies had left, which were a nightmare, to make it a far more simple and readable and understandable. So there's absolutely no reason why I can't make this a manual.
You keep it simple, right? Keep it as simple as possible. The fact that you have one product now, if you have 20 products, it will be more difficult. But again, difficulty is where usually the opportunity is. Because so now AI for images is great, but even you've probably seen with AI images, the first draft of the image is never the best. You need to tweak it, you need to merchandise it. And remember, the knowledge you have for your product, AI cannot have yet. So the knowledge you have for your product and how you see your product and the gut feelings you're starting to have, those are very important, because now you understand your product very well. For PPC, keep it as simple as possible. I mean, if conversion rate is going up, if you're targeting most of the keywords that are relevant, and I always suggest to have those 10 to 15 most important, target them like crazy. But the other 100 that you can dominate on, target them as well, because you can dominate a lot of the niche keywords. And now that your product has reviews and it's established, you can dominate a lot of these keywords that are not as popular, but people are looking for. You can dominate them, have crazy conversion rate, because your product is starting to get more established. Like, for PPC, you really want to be at every possible intent that a customer is looking for you. You want to be first there. That's a perfect case scenario, right? You will have majority of your sales coming from the top keywords, but if you have another 100 keywords you're getting a couple of sales from, it starts adding up. That's where you really want to play.
Thank you.
But you're already doing very well. It's just what I've seen with brands.
Yeah, it's great advice, and I'm all for learning and getting advice from people like you who are so experienced in the field and have all the knowledge, and especially have worked with multiple brands, agencies. I've got one SKU, and I've worked with a few poor agencies. And so speaking to someone with all the experience like you, it makes a wonderful big difference. I'll certainly keep a very much hands-on manual approach. And also that's the way to do
And ignore most advice. Most advice you see on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is probably the worst. Ignore most of the advice because every time you see someone giving advice, you should ask yourself, what have they done in the space, right? Because most of the agencies you see there, they've never sold a brand. So all they're saying is theory. Because think about it, you gave a perfect example. One of the agencies you spoke with, they're quite known. Like one of the agencies that charges 3K, they were known and they talk a big game. And by the way, you can be amazing at PPC, but maybe your team doesn't know how to manage it, right? Because there's many nuances. You know your product better than 99% of, better than all agencies. So really, your PPC skills are probably better than most agencies now. As crazy as that sounds, because just unfortunately the market is bad in that because a lot of amateurs goes into spaces. And my fear always with PPC is that it's real money. So if we manage anyone's account, including our products, if we manage our products, that's real money. The ad spend is not just a number; it's real money for the owner. So if you mismanage 3, 4, 5,000 pounds, that can be a big issue for a lot of smaller businesses. Now, with bigger businesses, you can get away, but again, you need to be careful. This is real money you're playing, and you know yourself. Amazon ads. I mean, if you mess up, you can overspend super quickly. Like all Amazon advices all the time is spend more, spend more, spend more. That's their number one advice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've made those mistakes. I've spent too much. I've not been, knowledgeable in where the spend was. But now that I know it all, it's certainly going to be very closely managed and, with an eye on it every day and making sure you're on top of it and keeping very close track of all the metrics. Those are very important to know
How often do you check your reports? Like how often do you check your data?
every single day.
I like that. That's exactly the answer. Yeah, that's the answer I was looking
Yeah.
for. Now you don't want to react on data every day, right? Because reports will be late, but you want to have always a look. And a perfect example, right? In the UK right now, it's super warm, so the weekend will slower sales for most brands. Now, if you don't know your data, you'll be like, oh no, let's react. Because what the mistake here is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday that was bank holiday. Now you start increasing your cost per click. That's the mistake, right? But I agree, you should check it all the time, every day, because especially you have one product, so that's a major advantage. That's where you have an advantage. Someone with 20 products, they were like, I'll just check 3. You can check your SKU because it's one every day. You can check absolutely everything every day. And it's easier to track. You can track organic rank, paid rank for everything much easier because it's one product. Retail is going to be very interesting because I think retail you can do very well. And retail, in my opinion, will help Amazon as well and online because it kind of gives you that proof of concept that I have retail. Now look at them. He's on Amazon as well. It gives you extra credibility, especially for the older generation.
Absolutely, absolutely. An interesting point that may be worth hearing your opinion on this is that I am not entirely sure, but I think my Amazon listing price may be affected by retail sales. Once I'm in the fact that because once I'm big enough in the retail market, you likely want your Amazon price to be slightly higher than your retail price. Otherwise, any shopper will say, I can just buy it online. And so let's say my product is $12.99 on Amazon, maybe it's retailing at $11.99. Or if you want to retail it at $14.99, you're going to have to push your Amazon price to $15.99. So there is going to be a time where my retail sales are more important than Amazon sales, and so pricing is going to have to be more elastic on Amazon to account for the adjustment.
Yeah.
But I think the conversion will still help because you'll bring in customers from who weren't initially shopping, and so we'll just figure that one out.
Yeah, and I think it will almost target 2 different markets, right? The people who go to Boots every day are not necessarily the people who shop heavily on Amazon as well. And we see this with websites because a lot of brands have fear that your D2C website, your Shopify, if you have on Amazon, it will take customers from there, but not really because actually whoever shops on your website is different from whoever's on Amazon. Amazon, the great thing about Amazon is their loyalty. Whoever uses Amazon Prime, they shop there. They're not the people who usually go to Superdrug on Boots and go and spend their time and explore. People who use Amazon Prime, they want to buy it at the basket. That's it. They want to deliver it next day. They don't want the hassle. If retail starts doing very well, which I think it will, is for Amazon to not try for you to do the same price. because you know how Amazon with the buy box competitiveness, sometimes they look at external prices, especially when it becomes more famous, the product, and they're like, oh, you lost your buy box because it's not price competitive. So there are ways around it, or there are ways around it. But that would be one thing to be careful of. And it will probably come to a point where you almost might have to make a decision of retail is now 90% of my market, which is possible. And but that's how the game is. Things change fast when you have a
Yeah,
product. Like you need to go where the market is and where it makes the
there
most
you go.
sense.
Exactly. What would you say is your number one piece of advice that has unlocked the most value for e-commerce founders or someone selling online?
So 100% is understand how to create products. Like I'm not saying actually manufacturing them, but perfect example, you had a pain point, you went to research it. You probably researched it for too long, but you went, researched it, understood the pain points very well because they were your own, and then launched it. And as you said, you ordered it to your house in the UK first because you wanted to see it physically. If you didn't, you wouldn't be able to spot the mistake they did. So that would have been a big nightmare. And I think the number one thing in e-commerce you should be thinking is quality of product and what it solves. Because if you have a good product, it's easier to market. It's most people want to learn marketing first and then product, and that's the other way around. Because marketing, it's only a fuel to the fire. It's not everything. If you don't have a good product, subscribe and save is not going to be great. LTV is not going to be great. Your CAC is going to go like crazy. The better you're at making products, everything else becomes easier. Understanding platforms is good, but good products sell everywhere. You can sell a good product on Amazon, TikTok Shop, retail. Bad products don't sell anywhere. And you don't want to go with trendy stuff because trendy stuff die out the fast. Anyone that we work that's doing very well, their number one focus is usually having an amazing product. Because what you also have with amazing products that people don't realize is word of mouth. Like if you sold 100,000 on Amazon units, if those 100,000 people say just one of them, two of them say something, that's another 100,000 of customers you have. It's the best products that we have in the market. They're usually good products. Coca-Cola tastes great. It might not be healthy for you, but the taste is amazing. That's why people keep on buying it. And if you look at the sales of Coca-Cola, how much actually comes from organic and repeated, it's insane. Their ad budget compared to their sales, it's crazy. So product is number one. Once you have the product down, it's then making sure you understand your numbers as well. That's an important part. What's your gross margin after fees? Especially for Amazon, your gross margin before fees might be 80%, but after fees is 30%. Understand your gross margin, understand cash flow cycles and cash conversion cycle. Like what's the best deals that I can get with my manufacturer? Can I do 50-50? Because the more cash you have at your disposal, the more you can invest in stock. So cash conversion cycle, cash flow, and margins, you want to understand them extremely well. That's why any good agency, before they onboard someone, they should ask for margins, or they should at least understand how much they're making so they know how much they can advertise. Because how can I know what your tackles should be if I don't know your margins? I'm just guessing. So margins, super important. But product and margins, and then the platforms, you figure them out. If you have a good product, it's easier. If you have a bad product, you can spend all your life trying to figure out platforms that's not going to work.
Okay, that is super helpful. And what about distribution? Someone told me this yesterday, funny enough. First time founder focuses on product, second time founder focuses on distribution.
Correct, yeah. Because the reason they do that is because the first time founder knows how to make the product. Sorry, the second time founder knows how to make a product now. And now he's like, because it's a good product, I need to be in front of everyone. That's the whole point now. If it's not a good product, you can distribute it, but it's gonna flop and it's gonna be more expensive for you. But yes, distribution is important. And also, second time founder has more capital. Now, in a perfect world, let's say you have an unlimited capital, which no one has. But in a perfect world, you have unlimited capital. You either get the best agency on Amazon you get the best TikTok shop agency you can, and of course it's difficult to find them. But if they're good, they're gonna smash it through for you on TikTok. That TikTok traffic is gonna spill over to Amazon, gives you more sales. Then you're gonna do the same for your website, and all that trifecta, you're gonna generate a lot of sales. Distribution wise, you wanna be on all the platforms if you can. The issue with distribution is that if you do it too early, you'll do Amazon okay, you'll do TikTok shop okay, and you'll do your website horribly. So it ends up costing you more. Distribution is great only if you understand the rules of the game. But for you, perfect example, you tried website, you tried TikTok shop, you tried Amazon, and you were struggling because there are three different platforms, three different ways of buying. On TikTok shop, demand is created. You don't go to there to buy a product. You go there, use it as a social media. You see something, you buy it, right? Or maybe you buy it on Amazon. Amazon is a search. Everything is search on Amazon. Someone searches for it. They already know what they want to buy. Maybe they don't know the brand, but they know I need something to fix my scars. I need something for creatine or for workout. That's a big difference. And if you don't understand these nuances in the platform and you're new and you don't have the capital, then it becomes difficult. So I would always start with one platform if I don't have the budget. You have the budget and you understand the game, the basics of the game, like the fundamentals, then you can go to other platforms. But TikTok Shop, I think for your product can do extremely well because it's small, it's not expensive, and it's very visual. You can do befores and afters on TikTok of how was beforehand, how was afterhand. But with TikTok, the reality is you need so much content, you need so many samples out. I mean, the best brands that I know on TikTok, they're doing 300-400 videos per day, just to give you a number. So yeah, 300, 200, 100, definitely thousands of videos per month. So you need to have the infrastructure, you need to have the stock, you need to have the cash for it. Because if your orders go from 1,000 a day today to 10,000 tomorrow, you will struggle to fulfill it because it's a physical product, right? And that's why we go then back again to numbers, know your cash conversion, know your estimated time of arrival, how long does it take from ordering to the factory actually receiving it. These are all things that you can only get with experience.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent, my friend. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. It was lovely to chat, and I'll continue following your content and your journey, and we'll be in touch.
Excellent, my friend. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Bye.